Hello and welcome to another monthly installment of Lean Catalyst, Strategies and Tactics for the Transformational CEO. My name is Damon Baker and I'll be your host and moderator for today's interview with our special guest, Marek May, who we'll introduce here in a moment. It is in this dynamic monthly 1-hour interview series that we bring together like-minded CEOs, leaders who have successfully embraced lean thinking within their organizations to drive exceptional results. And it's through our captivating conversations that we'll delve into their remarkable achievements, uncovering the strategies, insights, and practical wisdom that propel them and their organizations forward. Each series features an in-depth interview with a distinguished CEO who's demonstrated extraordinary leadership while demonstrating lean principles. And it's a great opportunity for them to share their experiences, strategies, and valuable knowledge with others to apply in their own leadership journeys. A few housekeeping topics before we introduce today's guests. This interview will be recorded, and if you signed up for this interview on the Zoom webinar platform, you'll receive an email with a link to the interview recording. Usually comes about 1 to 2 days after the interview is over. You may want to check your spam filter in case you did not receive that email. As a secondary countermeasure, you can always go to our YouTube channel, which is Lean Focus LLC. We archive all of our interviews, including this one, and you can watch all of the interviews that we've conducted in the past. And another way you can also watch our interviews is by going to our website, leanfocus.com. We have a thought leadership page where we have all of our webinars that you can watch there and sign up for new ones in the future as well. There will be a Q&A section at the end of today's interview. We usually allot about the last 10 to 15 minutes. And in your Zoom webinar control panel, you should see a Q&A option. If you want to ask a question of today's guest, simply type in your question in that area, and I will be responding to those in a first come, first served basis in hopes that we'll get through all the questions that you have for today's guest. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce today's guest, Marek May, who is the CEO of CSAT Solutions. Good morning, Marek. How are you?
Good morning, Damon. Doing well. How about yourself?
Wow, it's great to see you again.
You
too. A little bit about Marek's background. Marek joined CSAT Solutions in June 2021. He's a proven transformational leader with over 26 years of operations experience in automotive, heavy industrial, and HVAC. Marek comes to CSAT Solutions from J.B. Poindexter, which is a privately held, about a $2 billion automotive upfitter. We'll probably get into that discussion today. And was the company senior VP of operations there. Prior to J.B. Poindexter, he served as the senior vice president of operations at Oshkosh Corporation, heavy industrial. Marek holds a Bachelor in Science in Industrial Engineering from New Mexico State University and a Master of Science in Administration from Central Michigan University. All right, you ready to get started, Marek?
Yes, anytime you are, Damon.
So for those of us that are maybe unfamiliar or don't know much about CSAT Solutions, can you talk a little bit about your role at CSAT and what the company does?
Sure. So we are the world's largest consumer electronics repair company, definitely in the US, most likely the world. We have capacity to repair up to 25,000 laptops, desktops, tablets, motherboards in each and every week. So it's a very, very big operation. We've got about 6 buildings. And then we tied on USO Biomedical about 2.5 years ago, which is kind of the same thing as patient monitoring equipment. So you're talking LCD, motherboard, power supply, same kind of thing, but it's an out of warranty deal, and it's one in which we've really focused on lean right at acquisition, and we've seen some really nice results there.
And is CSAT Solutions private equity owned?
We are.
Okay.
I would consider us a mid-sized private equity company.
Okay. And the PE firm is who, and how long have they owned CSAT?
Insight Equity out of Dallas, Texas. And they've owned us for a little over 4 years.
Okay, great. Yeah, I always find that interesting because it has oftentimes an influence on the path you take of lean transformation over the period of time you're trying to do it. Because the goal in private equity is to exit at a higher multiple. So your focus oftentimes shifts towards the value creating side of the equation of all the things we need to do to exit at a higher EBITDA multiple. And maybe sometimes the cultural focus can sometimes get lost in that journey. So I'd be curious to talk about that as we move on today as well.
Absolutely.
So I'm curious, Marek, we're talking before we got started. You said, really your entire career has been about lean. So if you could just share with us, have a walk back through time, if you will, a timeline of Marek's career in all things lean and sort of like how you first became aware of, maybe it wasn't called that back then. I'm sure it wasn't because, your career spans multiple decades, not to tell how old you are, but yeah, so curious.
Old. I'm old.
I think we're the same age, so that's why I'm kind of laughing. So, talk to us about your career during the continuous improvement.
Yeah, I started as an industrial engineer at General Motors in '94, and they had something that they called synchronous manufacturing, which it was essentially all the lean tools without any of the cultural improvement. It was 5S and things like that, but it was definitely their own version of not doing it all the way right. Like a Toyota, at least at that point. I'm sure it's much better now. I moved on to Chrysler. Shortly after that, it was a new plant opening, a transmission plant, Kokomo, Indiana. And I was pretty quickly promoted to an area manager there. And I was probably too young. However, they thought that I could do the job. But one of the most awesome things that happened in my career was they selected me for they only selected one out of every plant in Chrysler, one person, to go on a 2-week, lean education program. And so the whole first week was pretty much teaching you about lean, teaching you about the tools, teaching you about what we're trying to get out of it.
Is this all inside the Chrysler? This is internally done?
It was internal to them. I believe we used a consultant though. They kind of developed the program and led the program, but a lot of it was internal Chrysler at that time. And this was when, Chrysler was really kind of cutting edge back then. I mean, I loved the Chrysler that I joined. This was a little bit prior to Daimler, that merger. However, it was very entrepreneurial. You think about all the executives there, eating Lutz. I mean, these guys were, look at the cars, the Viper, the Prowler, all of the neat stuff. What they were doing with Jeep was incredible. And then in the plants, they had an intense focus on really coming out of 80s style thinking and getting into lean and continuous improvement. And that was kind of the program in which they launched. And that was really the thought-provoking part for me because I'd never really heard it explained the way that it was explained. And then we got to go see a couple of places, went to a Federal Signal plant in West Virginia. And it was, I mean, to see it with your own eyes, it was totally different than anything that I had seen. And, very metrics based, but very visual. It was like everything kind of made sense to me. And so then I came back and unfortunately nobody else had gone to that program yet. So I was kind of a lone wolf. They're going, what the heck is that guy doing over there on the case line? And 2/4 clutches. And basically we really just kind of started from the basics and I experimented. I really didn't have a mentor at that point. I had a great mentor to learn the business and how a business is run and that sort of thing, but not someone that was like totally steeped in lean. And it actually, he'd always worked for Chrysler his whole life. So
at that time too, I'm guessing that there was limited amount of books on the market that you could read. There weren't like the websites and the videos and all
the goal.
You were really like on your own, so you had a question, it was like, I better figure this out.
Yeah, I read The Goal like 30 times probably as I was going through. It was an enjoyable read, but it was also really kind of the beginnings thinkings of what lean is. And theory of constraints and all that kind of good stuff, which is all fun stuff to go through. But it was another one of those very thought-provoking things. And yeah, I was reading books and that sort of thing. I then went to Borg Warner, and that was where I got a lot more formal training.
So this is like a tier one
Yeah,
supplier.
yeah, huge tier one automotive supplier. So
You
if you
couldn't
want
get
to think,
automotive. It's like automotive, more automotive.
well, no, it was less automotive each way. So I started at final vehicle, I went to transmissions, and then now I went to components.
Move upstream.
Yeah. And what I realized is the beatings get worse the further upstream you move, Damon.
Oh, that's
But so it was a great experience with Borg Warner. They had a great number of programs to kind of teach. They were kind of a little bit ahead of the pack, I would say. Um, and they let me experiment in different. I spent 2 years. Some people will always say, they want to move up as fast as humanly possible. And I was kind of somewhat ambitious, but also I'm not more grateful than the 2 years that I had waiting for my first plant manager job opening. That 2 year time period, all I did was experiment with lean. I mean, everything from 5S, we had everything mapped. We had already gone through 2 or 3 different excursions through, next level thinking and obviously Kaizen we had Kaizens running every single week. And our performance improved significantly. We had a really bad issue with GM on a design error, and it really put us behind the 8 ball. And over the 2 years that we were able to do that, we took our PPM to 1. So I
Wow.
mean, that was unbelievable, and that was a lot of error proofing. Um, it was a lot of process improvement and simplifying processes, PM, and TPM actually. And so it was one of those things where I got to experiment with people and teach people for the first time, and everybody got to see kind of what was happening. And so I had half of the plant and reported to the plant manager at that time, and of course then got switched over to the other side to try that one out. And that was about the time that I got the opportunity for my first plant, and that was when I kind of went wild. It was full out. Start off with 5S. We're going to talk about quality systems. We're going to talk about um, obviously putting metrics in place, daily walks, daily management. In that case, I had to turn over almost the entire leadership team almost, because, we needed a quick fix. The plant was bleeding. And so I needed folks that came in. I was very fortunate. Got a guy by the name of Don Bent, who I don't know if you've run across Don, but great guy, great leader. He came over from GM, and he was a big help to me. He kind of was my partner in crime, and we made change really fast with everybody. And I think that was when I finally realized that lean was not about management. It's not, you better have the right leaders in place or you can forget about it. But it's really ground up where the work is done, right? I mean, all the people coming in, walking into carpet land, they're not the people that are creating the value. The people that are creating the value are the people that are on the floor. And so working with them, answering questions, supporting them, encouraging them, that was when I finally got to see that's really how it works. And so that was kind of, I guess I'm kind of taking along my lean journey at Oshkosh and Ingersoll, or really it was Train and at JB Pico. It's just been further renditions. I learned something every day. I still learn stuff every single day. But as a CEO, it's kind of a little bit more fun because you get to kind of lay out the vision for the company. And folks are going to get on board or they're not, but for the most part they do. And it's really gratifying to drive it still at the same level. I still drive it every day. However, it's to watch everybody come around it and watch our improvement. The improvements that we've made here at this company are pretty outstanding from an EBITDA standpoint. We're talking 25% improvement over 2 years.
Wow, that's
So
amazing.
so that was and that's through COVID and all that kind of good stuff as well. And so now we're kind of on the other end, and that the awesome part about doing lean right is you're simplifying your processes, because now we're really focused on innovation, we're really focused on automation. And as you know, Damon, better than anybody, if you don't have your processes simplified as much as humanly possible, automation is a dream. Forget about it.
Yeah, and it could actually exacerbate the situation, make it worse if you implement it too prematurely. Yeah.
1,000 times. And so we've had three good implementations on automation, which is really changing our name. We've won multiple innovation awards from our main customers, all the big guys that you've heard of, and it's something that's very much appreciated. It helps us, helps our customer with cost, and it helps us with performance, and obviously improve performance.
As you reflect back on that journey, Marek, what stands out to you as sort of like the shortcomings or the potential that was lost because maybe the business system wasn't implemented in a more holistic and thoughtful way? So like you commented on GM as an example, where your first experience seemed to be all about tools and implementing the tools in some specific order, and the emphasis is on tool maturity. And I see that a lot, even, fast forward 20, 30 years from now, like people are so enamored by the tools and implementing the tools in a precise order and assessing how mature or in depth the tools are implemented. Meanwhile, the business is hemorrhaging or not growing, or there's strategic misalignment issues that people just neglect or ignore because their focus is myopic around this tool-based lean implementation. So as you think about all those stops on the journey, and I don't want you to like name names or name companies, but like what were the Pareto bars of things that you saw that were like really failures of implementation or execution of the launch and really successfully integrate this as part of the culture and how the business operates?
Yeah. So, I think a big part of it is patience level. And this may make sense to you, it may not. But to me, if you've got the leaders of a business that say, I need lean implemented in 6 months, that's going to be a failure. I'm sure there's plenty of much better lean practitioners than myself, but if you're at a large company, you've really got to think about it as you're building your business system. You really have to think about, what are the true expectations of as you're coming along. Obviously, you need an ROI,
Yeah, I
because
mean, right out of the gate, the inherent flaw in that thinking is it signals to the organization that lean has a start and an end.
yes,
I need this
horrible.
by, like, when is done? Like, who's gonna say what's done,
Yeah,
right?
nobody. It's never done. I guess that's kind of the whole point. But yeah, I sit back and I think about walking into multiple plants. I've been in operations my whole life, so I've always been around running plants and that sort of thing. Every single plant I walked into, you could find a corner of the plant where there was tape. You could see this ancient tape on the floor, right? Even paint in many cases. They were really committed that they were never going to move. There was never a better place to move that little workbench in the entire world, because we were going to paint it. And so you see that, daily management boards that have been updated in 9 months, or even years in some cases. And so I think the other thing that's it's not a downfall, I think it's a requirement, is diligence. And it's not diligence like once a week, it's diligence every single day, right? you have to encourage, the higher you go up, the more you have to encourage people to do it. And you can't encourage them, from behind your desk. You can't encourage them, by a town hall meeting twice a year. It's got to be, kind of hands on, and it's got to be with the entire leadership team. The entire leadership team are almost, they're folks that are mentors to people, but at the same time, they put on a cheerleading uniform every day as well. And it's a constant thing that you don't turn back from. An interesting story. So this one you'll laugh at probably. I was at Oshkosh, had this kid with just tremendous potential. He was probably maybe a year too young for the position that he was in. He was over one of the larger facilities, and he's almost in tears one day. And it's because he thinks we're going to miss two LVSR deliveries, and that was a very, very complex 10-axle independent axle truck with a lot of complexity in it. And as you know, in the DoD world, they have DCMA. You're going to bring your trucks, and you got to buy them. It's the last day of the month, and they're being painful as they can be. And he's got tears in his eyes. He's like, "We're going to miss a truck, Mark. We're going to get fired." I said, "No, we're not." And I said, "We're not going to get fired over two trucks." I said, "But let me ask you something. When's the last time you did a 5S walk out here with your guys?" And he just stopped, and he's like, "Wow, I've never had anybody ask me that." And I said, "Well, you've heard me ask you." He said, "Yeah, beside you, but right now we're in the most hectic situation that he's ever been in his life." And I'm saying, "Why aren't we, when's the last time you went?" And as I said, matter of fact, I don't even want to hear about the trucks until you've taken your leaders. I want a full walk of the plant. I want to see who's doing well, who's not doing well. I'm going to let you take this one. I'm not going to go on it. And he came back to me after that and he said, it was one of the things where everybody gets so tactical. He realized he himself was so tactical every single day in just the minutia of getting a product out, that he's let it overtake because he was a lean practitioner, but he let it overtake, who he was. And so that was a great lesson for him. He comes back and still tells me that story every now and then, laughing about it. But he's a CEO of a great company that's private equity held as well. His name is Jake Jones, great guy. And I think if you were to tell him, he would just laugh at himself back in the day.
What I like about that story is oftentimes people mistakenly think that lean, again, as we talked about, it's event-based, that it's going to have a start and a finish. But more importantly, like when there's crisis or chaos in an organization, we can park lean because we can say things like, we don't have time to do X, Y, and Z, whether it be a Kaizen event, a 5S walk, the PM that we need to maintain a critical piece of equipment. And to me, it's not an either or proposition, it's an and. Like I have to service the customer and the system, because the system is what allows me to service the customer reliably, at least at the lowest cost, safest way. And it's when we start making those little mental trade-off decisions in our head where it's like, output versus, quality or safety and these kinds of things. And that's the hardest thing I think people grapple with is, people say like, I don't have time for Kaizen. And I always share my experience at Danner. It's like, we never had time for Kaizen either, ever. Like, but we just did it. Like, like there was never a good time of the year where we're all sitting around on our hands going, oh, it sounds like this is, it's a good time for Kaizen because finally
Yeah.
dust is settled and there's nothing to work on and we can go fix all this process. We knew that we would never achieve these aspirational targets unless we did Kaizen. It was not
Yes.
possible. So I think, culturally, and this is my question to you, is the American culture partly to blame for the lack of patience and constance of purpose around lean in a lean journey? And to kind of tee it up, it's like, are we fixated on results? It's kind of like, I don't want to work out. I want to take a drug. I don't want to, take care of my kids. I'll put a phone in front of their face so that they can watch YouTube videos. Like, are we partly to blame as to why companies are not successful and as disciplined and as rigorous as what you suggest, or do you belie that notion and you say, no, that's not it?
No, I think it depends. It depends on the company. So to an extent, the answer to your question is yes, because we are a society that wants results now. Everybody wants results now. I want results now. All of us do, right? You do as well. You're growing your great company, and but in 1 year, you're not going to get every single thing that you want done that you feel like you need to get done. Um, it's interesting. I think that's probably the root cause of a lot of the failures of lean rollouts is impatience, our culture that okay, you know what? Something right? Instead of staying the course, you stay the course, you stay the course, no matter what the emergency. Because I always looked at it like this. So you come into a company that has no lean culture at all, right? Maybe not even a culture. And I've always seen it this way as like two inverted lines, right? On one side, on your y-axis, you've got brute force that's starting up here at the top left, and down here you have smart lean, okay? And you're not going to survive implementing lean if you just go away from brute force right away. So you're doing things that I know inherently are wrong, right? Not morally wrong, not ethically wrong, but they're wrong in the way that a business should behave. But over time, if you can keep this line coming up and brute force line coming down, you're going to hit that inflection point, and that's when all of a sudden exponentially things happen. And so that's why I'm saying, especially in talking about the crisis in our culture and that sort of thing, if I could get people, I've drawn that, it's on probably 10 boards at my company right now, that exact drawing.
Yeah.
And it's one of those that it tells people, yeah, we've still got to perform, but at the same time, we don't want to keep performing it as hard as it is.
Yeah.
So let's get a group of people that's working on doing things smarter and easier, while at the same time performing. Boom, you hit that inflection point and you're off and running.
Yeah, working smarter, not harder. I think the common misconception is that lean is an extra thing on top of how I run my company, whereas the definition, or at least the version you and I are familiar with, is like the system replaces the way you're running your company for the right reasons. So like, for example, it's like every company has most likely a monthly operating review, but then when you sit in that meeting before lean and lean thinking and problem solving, you listen to the conversation, it's a lot of hand waving and excuse making and reporting the news, very little problem solving, if any.
Yep.
Very little coaching from leadership. It's a lot of pounding the fist, on the table, work harder, get me the numbers kind of stuff, but
Right.
low on actual strategies and tactics of how we're going to do it. And then you're just stuck in that monthly discipline and nobody can sort of see that that's chaotic. And then when they're asked to do something in addition to that, then their mind just cannot separate the two things. And I explain to people, it's like, when you do this the right way, you stop doing all those things that you just talked about by brute force, go away and are replaced by things that serve you and serve you in
Absolutely.
a way that personally you would not abandon. And I'm sort of curious, it's like, where in your career did you stop mistrusting lean and its principles and whether or not it works, and you just put the ultimate faith? It's like, I know this stuff works. No matter where I go, I'm gonna bring this thought process with me and make this the core of how I lead a company or an operation. For me, it was probably halfway into my first stint in consulting, where I had done it like all in operations and had transformed plants, but I'd never done it for somebody else where I didn't work at that company. So I had a lot of airs and confidence, I think, in my first year of consulting, and this would have been like in the early 2000s. where I was like, I know this stuff worked where I came from, but now I got to go do it in a carpet business, or now I got to go do it in an oil tool making business. And
Yeah.
I have a lot of, like I could give all these examples from all these other industries I worked in, but not the ones I was at. So I had to, fake it until I made it. And then there was a point probably a year in where I was like, shit, man, this stuff works everywhere. I don't care what it is. Whether you're flipping hamburgers, selling insurance policies, or cutting people open on an OR table, and of course manufacturing. Like I stopped listening to people say this is not a car factory. It's like no shit. Yeah, of course you're not making cars here. I get it. Like I'm not saying you are. So where in your career did you sort of like just start trusting that this stuff worked and you stopped hearing the naysayers?
Twice. It happened when I finally left automotive, when I left Borg Warner for an opportunity to run, a very large plant for Train. So make, heating and air conditioning. We made air handlers, air cleaners, and some of that stuff in South Georgia. And I've always thought, I guess I'd always thought of lean in the in automotive. It's really not that big a fight because in automotive, it's been a discussion point, done at varying degrees of success for many years.
Don't you
But
think like the necessity of like in order to compete in automotive, you have to operate your businesses in a way that looks like lean. Maybe you're not full Toyota, but like just to compete and stay relevant,
oh
you
yeah,
have to
your margins are,
have low inventory, you have to have great quality, right?
yeah, one quality incident could wreck an entire year. It's a lower margin business. It's high volume, low margin. And so every little bit matters in automotive. And so I think that's what's drawn because of the, high cost and all that kind of stuff. That's what's drawn such an incredible interest. And then the success of Toyota, kind of everybody, it's copycat too. So but in automotive, it was accepted. Everybody had at least heard of it. When I went to train, no, everybody looked at me like I had snakes growing out of my head. And it was one of those things. I visited a couple of other plants, and I'm like, oh my God, how do these places operate like that? So we took, in this case, it was awesome because not one person leadership team member was replaced. A couple were promoted out, but that was it. We did this internally. Every day I had morning meeting and the entire staff, we'd go out and walk. And I remember the first couple of weeks, it took 2 weeks. I said there was an aisle that went all the way around the plant. It's a pretty large plant, probably 300,000 square feet, something like that. And we would walk all the way around. And I said, look, I don't want anything in the aisle. When I first came in, there were fork trucks that were stuck because of all this stuff. They couldn't get past each other from the stuff just in an aisle. I said, we're going to get this aisle clean, guys. That's how we're going to start. We're going to do this as a team. And so people would take on a little bit of responsibility. Finally, in 2 weeks, we made it all the way around where nothing was even touching the yellow outline. Huge accomplishment. Everybody's a little bit proud. I said, guys, isn't this a lot better? It's a lot safer. Yeah, absolutely. I said, now what if we do this from yellow line to yellow line on the inside and from front to back? And everybody kind of got on board. Yeah, but how are we going to do that? So let's start with 5S and let's start with getting some metrics in the areas. We need to define these areas where the teams can be successful, right? And so we really just started out with those two things. Eventually, once the place was cleaned up, then of course we got into process improvement and all of those sorts of things. But that was probably one of the most fun things because I realized, hey, this does work literally everywhere in any industry. It is absolutely necessary, and it changed people's lives. Within 7 months, my team was so proud because we were always seen as kind of the South Georgia plant. But my boss, who is Don Roy, great guy, great leader as well to me. And to a lot of people, of course. But he made all of the plant managers, there were four other huge plants, one in New Jersey, one in Fort Smith, one in Tyler, all come to our plant and walk around. And he said, this is what I've been talking about. It's 6 months. You guys have been working for 2 years. Now, that made me not the most popular person in the world. But what it did for my team at that point, it was like a steroid shot for everybody wanting to even get better and better and better. And we did, and nobody caught us. And it was incredible. We won awards, from inside the company, and it was fun, and life became so much easier than that daily grind. And everybody was engaged. That was probably one of my most fun ones there. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna reflect on what you said. It seems like when you made the industry leap, it was like automotive, 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 then HVAC manufacturing, which you sort of entered it in a phase when lean hadn't found its way into that industry, and now you could argue that it's surpassed automotive in some ways in terms of
Yep.
its maturity. So it was like untilled territory, but you're able to replicate your success in a new industry, so you gain confidence that, hey man, this stuff works. I'm making air conditioners, and this is working. And you did it and made a pretty big leap in 6 months.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely. On inventory, everything was a focus by the end.
What's interesting about your 5S story, I kind of joke with people like, one of the lame lean rules that I have like a whole list of them, but one of them is thou shalt always start with 5S.
Me
And,
too. Me too.
and so there's sort of like two ends of the sword of that. It's like, you could start with 5S, but you could be missing like this huge quality issue or strategy issue in your business. So I think blindly moving towards a tool has repercussions if you're not careful. But what I do like about what you described in sort of the 5S journey is 5S forces decisions and problem solving to take place. And here's what I mean by that. When you told the team, well, now that we can get around the perimeter, right, we've accomplished that, and now we're going to get inside the cells where the production area is. Now you have to start looking at things like standard width,
Absolutely.
production. If there's a bin of red rejects there, it forces you to deal with the reason why it's there. It's like, do I really want to create a spot for this bin of bad parts when I should deal with the bad part root causes? So 5S done correctly forces you to go deeper into those systemic process improvements that have to be made around standard work and flow and pull and these kinds of things.
You got it.
Correctly. What you don't want to do is just put tape around the nonsense and put everything where it's at today without questioning the flow of things.
Absolutely. So you know what, this is an approach that I've always taken, that I've learned was probably the most effective for me, not for everybody. A lot of people will like to start with one corner of a plant and say, all right, we're gonna 5S this one little area, and then we're going to start populating value stream maps and future state. We're going to address inventory in this little area. We're going to start putting a pull system in. We're going to implement Kanban here, et cetera. And I don't know if you know how many plants I've walked through where I see that one corner of the plant back in ancient Egypt that went through this exercise and it never went anywhere else. And so for me, this is the way that I've always started it is, guess what, guys, for 2 weeks, all we're going to do is sort, right? Couple of simple rules, right? Anything that you don't use every single day goes off to the side. Something you never use goes into the red tag area. Okay. And you're going to walk the plant every day and ask the questions of the people. Why do you need, why? That's a team sport. And one of the things that it did a couple of things for me. One, it told me who out there of our leadership was on board. Two, who had the ability to do it. Because everybody says or would think this is such a simple thing, because it is, it's intuitive, but it's also a team sport. You're actually getting everybody on the floor actively working on something that is not an end result product. It's a process. And everybody's thinking is starting. Okay, now we're going to set an order, right? Now we're going to go ahead and let's go ahead and clean these areas up. We're in pretty good shape. You know what, guys? We're not using any paint. We're going to use because we're going to do this probably 3 times before it's right, before it's right enough to where it can become, into sustained faction. So what it did for me is it sorted out a lot of folks that could get things done, and it got the entire plant working together. And you could even have very fun, very healthy competitions, within the plant. And to me, it was just something that's where I've always started. You can walk and chew gum. I think gum, when I get someplace, gum is 5S, and then but I can still walk and still figure out where's the worst bleeding that we need to go address right now, right?
I want to switch gears here and talk about CSAT solutions for a while. So to me, this is especially relevant for CEOs who maybe are making a leap from one industry to the next.
Mm-hmm.
Because as you talked about your experience, unless I missed something, it seemed like this was really another industry leap for you.
Huge,
Yeah.
huge. Yeah.
So out there today, there's CEOs maybe considering taking a role where maybe throughout their career they've worked in one or a handful of industries that they're very familiar with, and maybe even have familiar lean business system implementation experience with, and they're considering or about to make a leap into another industry. And in this particular instance, you've got the private equity dimension too, which I think is important because not only do you have to think about, well, how does lean apply in this industry context? Because I'm not making automotive parts and doing something different, and I'm like a fulfillment center in a lot of ways. So you got that piece, like how does lean look like for CSAT solutions? But then you also have this extra management layer of there's a private equity firm that wants some sense of control and control the outcome, which is we want to be able to sell this asset we acquired at a higher multiple than what we paid for it. So our focus at the PE firm level should be on the value creating levers that need to be pulled to drive that, which is, it's the typical usual offenders. It's organic growth, margin expansion, free cash flow improvement, all those things that consistently over the whole period will result in that. So given that situation, it's like, what was your frame of mind? How did you approach the first 6 months on the job to really kind of figure it out? Like, okay, here's what it looks like for CSAT.
Yeah, thank goodness I came in as COO. So I spent my first 2 years as COO, and then great guy, Dick Van Deventer, was the CEO for 14 or 15 years, and he retired, and so I took over for him. But coming in as the COO, I actually, if there was one time in my life where I questioned, I was like, God, this business is so different. I mean, we're service and repair. And then I started thinking about it. Wait, okay, so we have inventory. Inventory's got to move. Work has to get done. And then the flow is pretty simple. Once you get the flow, it's pretty simple process. The value was in our technicians. It's one of those things that it's kind of the same as in the other industries. It still goes to the work that's getting done. Um, it was interesting. Of course, we did 5S is a very important thing, and what? Not only important for the organization itself, our customers all notice it. When they come in, they go, "Wow, what in the world is going on at CSAT? This is crazy how good this place looks." And so there's kind of a double effect on that. But really, we got into, so if we were to hire a technician off the street, he would go through our training program, and we had very, 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 state of the art buddy system program and things like that. And I was being a little sarcastic, but We didn't put a lot of effort into that. It was kind of like everybody fend for themselves, send them into the sea of benches, and we'll see which ones make it, which ones don't. And we had a very, very, very strong engineering group, a very strong engineering leader. And we really kind of put our heads together of, okay, why does it take 12 weeks to get someone 80% of standard? Why does it take 12 weeks? And why is probably 3 in every 4 heading right back out the door before the 12 weeks are here? We got a major problem. I mean, our turnover was over 100% annualized. Our absentee rate was over 10%. We had churn, huge churn in our repair techs. What we did was we kind of started there. We developed our own chat bot, for example, which could help. Like most of the stuff that we get's no power, no post. So okay, when you have that model that's got that, these guys, especially the new, and even some of the folks that are on the floor, they're replacing more parts than they should, go through this question and answer, yes, no, if, then process, right? It's a very standard process for everybody to go through. It teaches them right away kind of what to do. We brought in HoloLens technology. So, it's you've seen the Microsoft,
Yeah, the goggles.
yeah, the AV stuff, or the whatever you want to call it. Anyway, it's we put that in place and put our training curriculum on it. And so they were doing, you could see your hands and you had your work instruction right here. You got guys coming in now going, man, I didn't hear this company was like this. Holy cow. Well, guess what? We all of a sudden had cut our training time to 80% standard into 4 weeks from 12 weeks. Fantastic, because it's very hard to go up in volume, very, pretty easy to control when you're going down. It's
Your
unfortunate.
revenue generating technicians, right? So the speed to ramp, whether producing at rate or whatever standard you require, is incremental revenue and profit that you get by your ability to compress the amount of time that takes to onboard somebody. And then, of course, there's the impact of whatever errors they may have created, or longer cycle times than standard because of how they went about troubleshooting or building wasn't per the standard. So the incorporation of some of these technologies like HoloLens and AI chatbot for troubleshooting,
Yep.
compress.
Exactly. And then the name of the game is about diagnosis. And so we've been playing with, I would say, but actually I think we're starting to see some traction on throwing AI on top of each model that comes in, the parts that are needed to replace it, what the customer's complaint is. We are almost to the point, we're not there yet, but we're almost to the point where we can order a part before the unit even makes it out to a technician, instead of going through that whole diagnosis process. So there's a lot of really fun stuff that we're doing as well, but it's still the basic of everything that we're doing is still lean. We've added a ton of automation here recently. I mean, we talked about this earlier. You cannot put automation on a bad process. You can't do it. You'll have bad automation and a big waste of money. And so spending all of that time in really, going through value stream maps, going through, charting out, maps on boards, which any conference room you walk into, you would see remnants of value stream maps. And then going ahead and taking these pieces out, making it more simple. Now we're able to add those sorts of things. And so we're at a really exciting time for us. We're on the automation trail, we're on the innovation trail. Our plants are very sustained. We're essentially a sustainability business. People would be throwing away their computers if you can't get them repaired. So there's that element. There's that element as well. And then, but it's still, everything that we do is steeped in lean. That's where it all starts and that's where it all ends. And, daily management, everywhere you go in every single plant, you're going to see a board. It's going to be updated from yesterday, and you're going to see people around it talking about their problems and how do we get this fixed? How do we get better at this? So it's really an exciting time. And this is in the service industry. So what I would tell somebody saying, man, I don't want to take this leap because it's out of my comfort zone. It works everywhere, literally everywhere.
Your story aligns with something I tell people. I said, figure out who the surgeons are and treat them as such. So here's an example. So you go to the hospital, the people who generate the most income generally for the hospital are the surgeons, right?
Yep.
So do you want the surgeons looking for their scalpel? Do you want the surgeons looking for all the materials needed to do the surgery? Do you want your surgeons prepping the OR? Do you want your surgeons cleaning the OR? Like, no, you want your surgeons doing surgery.
You
So
got it.
how that aligns with a business is like in every business, I don't care what business it is, you have surgeon or surgeons, like who are the people who make and produce the value, whether it be a product or a service or both in your business. And oftentimes they are the persons who are thought about the last.
Yeah.
They're deprived of resources, they're deprived of attention, they're told to just go do it. They are the ones that are paying our paycheck. So in your example, the surgeon is the technician. It's that person sitting at the bench that can make him or her more productive and integrate them quicker into the team. The company wins as a
You
result.
got
Right? So
it.
the
Hey,
principle, regardless of what industry you're going in, is figure out who the surgeons are and treat them like that.
you got it. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. And you know what? To further cement your point, we had over 100% turnover when I came in 4 years ago.
Imagine you have 100% of your surgeons turnover in a
Oh
hospital.
my Lord, yeah. And it was our surgeons.
Yeah,
And right now our technician, right now we are less than 1% a month.
that's great.
So we're probably right around 10% annualized and from well over 100%, depending on where you're at. Absenteeism, less than 2%. Used to be 10, 12, 14%. So everything has kind of moved forward in the right direction, just relative to our approach and what we've done.
All right, we got several questions here from folks that are listening. You ready for some questions, Mark?
Yeah, well, it depends on if I know them. Let's decide if we should take that one or not.
All right, you can send it to me if you. I'll try my best.
I'm
To
just
what
kidding.
extent is lean leadership, principles and behaviors vital in facilitating doing lean right? How do you get leaders committed? I mean, really committed to lean.
Yes. At what participation level? Is that the start of the question?
It's to what extent is lean leadership, and they define lean leadership as principles and behaviors, vital in doing lean right?
100%. If you have the wrong leaders, they're not going to support people. I mean, if you've really got to think about it, your surgeons are looking for help, right? And now all of a sudden, this thing called lean is coming in, and oh my Lord, they actually care. They care about me. But if you've got a leader who doesn't care, who isn't participating in it, who's paying lip service to it, that area is gone. Just forget it. You need to make a change very, 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 very quickly.
Yeah,
Either, I had a great guy, Alfred Weber, who was the president or CEO of Mon and Hummel, and I worked for him at Borg Warner, and he had this thought, and it may sound cold, but it's not. It's change the people or change the people. And he
yeah,
was talking about leadership.
yeah. Many people say the same thing. Collins, get the right people in the right seat in the bus. Like the
Yeah,
very first thing you need to do before your transformation. I'm curious, you personally, when you think about behaviors and you're interviewing people, or maybe you're seeing people on your team that maybe you haven't met, and they're leaders. What types of behaviors are you looking for if you're to like follow them around throughout the day and say this person, him or her, really gets it and is modeling the right behaviors that go along with the lean culture? What are those? What's an example of some of those behaviors you're looking for?
sure. I mean, the floor walk is my favorite because did they say hello to people? Do they help it? Do they pick something up, for the janitor and throw it in the bin?
Somebody look away when they come on the floor like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, do they go up to a board, look at it, and maybe ask a question, right? Do they look at something and say, why is there so much inventory over in that one little spot? Right. I mean, it's those kind of things, but then it's even more than that. When I watch them walk in to the receptionist, how do they treat the receptionist? How do they go about, the HR liaison who's bringing them back to the conference room? How do they treat that person? To me, that's kind of what it's about. I don't want anybody who is not picking up trash, who is not being kind to people, who's not truly interested in how other people are doing. I don't want those people on my team.
Would you characterize those behaviors as humility and intellectual curiosity?
Yes,
Yeah.
100%. Yes, absolutely.
All right, next question. Do you consider 5S to be a strong foundation in implementing lean? I know
Yes,
you're
yes, it is.
anything
It's
you want
more than a tool, man. It's a team activity. It's your first chance to get everybody together on one common purpose.
Yeah, it's the habits it creates and the discipline it creates in the organization too. So it's less about the physical outcome and it's more about getting people in this habit, or the kata people would say the kata of doing things consistently over time in a repeatable way. So if you can do 5S, you can do standard work. You can do standard work, you can do TPM, you can do, all the things that you need to sustain your operation, whatever that is. There's going to be
Yep.
a lot of those things that need to be done more than one time in order to be successful. And if
Yeah.
you're a person that loves routine and discipline, sign up for something else because lean is not for you.
All right.
Yeah, I had a CEO tell me like, you'll love the journey to get to where you are, to where you have stable, predictable outcome where every day is like Groundhog Day, but you'll hate what you need to do to maintain Groundhog Day.
Yes, you will. Yeah.
I was like, I never knew what that meant until I kind of got close to that. And I was like, yeah, he's right. It's like one missed tact, you miss an order, like you're down to minutes in some cases, where maybe 2 years ago you didn't even know what minutes were. It was more like days of delay.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What's the value of a good material strategy, and what point do you advise rolling this out?
Immediately, if I think of non-value added activity, it is the movement of material, particularly by people. Um, it's one of those things. It's waste, right? One of these realizations that I had a long time ago about I was actually not very interesting. I was taking a shower and I was thinking about lean. I was thinking about the
Not
seven.
leaving the flower, you are first.
I was thinking about the seven ways, right? Every single one of them still tie back to inventory, which
Yeah,
is which is interesting. Every one of them do. I don't care what you're scrapping inventory, right? You're moving inventory,
yeah.
right?
For
You're
inventory.
transporting inventory. Inventory is it's all goes back to inventory and all the waste that goes around that. So materials, I would materials movement and optimizing materials, I would put at the very top of a list as
Yeah,
well. That's where you can automate the most too.
that's good advice. This person wants to work for you. He says if you're hiring a lean manager, he'd love to join your team. So you
I love it.
convince this person. Um, Last question, and then we'll wrap up. Leader standard work is an important part of the lean transformation. What is your opinion regarding the percent of time with schedule for improvement slash development types of activities versus first line supervisor in a manufacturing operation that is just starting their lean journey?
Yeah. You know what? Everybody's got strengths and weaknesses. One of my weaknesses was getting around leader standard work only for one reason, because some people can get so attached to a list of what they should be doing instead of paying attention to their people and supporting their people. So, as long as it's taken with a grain of salt, right? I think it's a very, very good thing. It instills discipline for first line supervisors and they're young. I think it's a really, really good thing. But if you've got folks that have been around a little bit, I don't want them checking off their check mark all day long, saying, yes, I went by and I checked end of the line. Or they should be doing all that stuff already. It's kind of like work instructions, right? Work instructions are absolutely required and needed, but when a person's been doing a job for a year, they're not looking up at their work instructions anymore. You may differ with that one, huh?
No, I totally agree. Preaching to the choir, preaching to the converted.
Hey, before we wrap though, I do want to shout out John McKnight. He was the one that actually got me in touch with you before you and I ever knew each other. He suggested, I said, hey man, this is what I need to do. This was a very, very challenging situation at a company that's pretty hard to budge. And he's a very good friend of mine. And he said, dude, there's one number, call Damon. Just call him. He's just starting up this company. Called, you and I hit it off right away, understood the idiosyncrasies of kind of that assignment, but really appreciate John McKnight and appreciate you, Damon, not only for y'all's friendship, but also you know, the learning that goes back and forth is incredible. And so I do want to thank both of you.
Thank you for that. I really appreciate that. And John is an amazing guy. So.
He is.
All right, so that was a fast hour, Marek. I knew it would go by fast. So we'll probably have to do a season 3 version of this.
All right, sounds good.
When you've exited and you're on your yacht, you know, traveling the world.
Now, I enjoyed it. I've looked forward to it, Damon.
Before we bid farewell to Marek, I encourage everyone to take a moment to reflect on the valuable insights and practical advice he shared with us today, and how you can apply these lessons on your own organization's lean journey. If you have any further questions or would like to explore the possibilities of initiating, enhancing, or improving your own lean transformation journey, please don't hesitate to reach out to us here at Lean Focus. We're here to support you every step of the way, no matter where you are. Once again, we want to extend our heartfelt gratitude for Marek to join us today, sharing his expertise and wisdom with us, and we're grateful for his contributions to this interview series. We hope to see you all next month in another exciting installment of Lean Catalyst, and wish you all continued success in your lean transformation journey. Take care, all. Have a good day, good week, Marek. Bye now.
All right, let's all get better.
Yes, sir. Take care.
All right, bye-bye.